The espresso machine in my office hummed quietly as I read the email for the third time. 2 years after walking out of my life, my ex-husband was asking for a meeting. Emily, please. I know I don't deserve your time, but my company is in trouble. I need investors who understand the business. Just 1 hour of your time. I glanced at the stock ticker on my computer screen, watching as Richardson Technologies shares dropped another 15%. David's company was doing more than struggling. It was in free fall. Ms. Bennett? My assistant's voice came through the intercom. Your 10 a.m. is here. Thank you, Sarah. Give me 2 minutes. I closed the email without responding and smoothed my silk blouse. The view from my corner office reminded me how far I'd come since that night David left. She makes me feel young again, he'd said, packing his bags while I watched from our bedroom doorway. Jessica understands me in ways you never did. I'd said nothing, just watched as he grabbed his expensive watches, his tailored suits, his golf clubs. He left behind 20 years of marriage and the woman who'd helped him build his company from the ground up. What he didn't know was that I'd been preparing for this moment for months. The signs had been there: late nights at the office, mysterious text messages, a sudden interest in staying fit at 45. I'd seen it all before with other executives' wives. But unlike them, I didn't cry or beg. I didn't throw his things out the window or key his precious Tesla. Instead, I got my ducks in a row. My name is Emily Bennett, and while my husband was busy with his 24-year-old mistress, I was busy turning his biggest mistake into my greatest triumph. The first sign of trouble had come during a charity gala 8 months before he left. I'd watched Jessica, his new marketing coordinator, touch his arm and laugh at his jokes. She was beautiful in that obvious way: long blonde hair, perfect makeup, designer dress probably bought with her corporate card. But it wasn't her attention to my husband that caught my eye. It was the way she studied the room, noting which executives were there, which conversations mattered. She wasn't just a pretty face. She was ambitious. That night, I'd gone home and opened my laptop. 20 years of marriage to a tech CEO had taught me more than just how to host dinner parties. I knew the industry inside and out, had sat through countless strategy meetings, had edited every major proposal David had ever written. I also knew his blind spots. David had always focused on hardware, servers, networks, infrastructure. He dismissed software as support services, but I'd been watching the market. The future wasn't in boxes and wires. It was in cloud services, in AI, in the invisible systems that made everything work. So while David wined and dined his young girlfriend, I started making calls. First to Janet Chen, my old roommate from business school who now ran a venture capital firm. Emily? She'd sounded surprised to hear from me. It's been ages, how are you? I'm about to be divorced, I'd said calmly, and I have a business proposition for you. We'd met for coffee the next day. I laid out my plan: a software company specializing in AI-driven cloud management, something that would complement existing infrastructure companies like David's, while quietly making them obsolete. Janet had listened, taking notes, asking sharp questions. At the end, she looked up with a smile I remember from our college days, the one that meant she smelled blood in the water. Univis will compete directly with Richardson Technologies, she'd said. Eventually, I agreed, but by then, it'll be too late. She wrote me a check for $2 million in seed funding that afternoon. I hired the best developers I could find, poaching several from David's own company. They came eagerly. It turned out I wasn't the only one who'd seen the writing on the wall. Richardson Technologies was still profitable, but it was falling behind the curve. The divorce was quick and clean. David, convinced I was just a trophy wife who'd gotten too old for the role, didn't look too closely at my new consulting business. He gave me the house and a decent settlement in exchange for my shares in his company. I signed the papers with a Mont Blanc pen he'd given me for our 15th anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me. By the time the ink was dry, Bennett Digital Solutions was already developing its first product. While David posted Instagram photos of his Hawaiian vacation with Jessica, I was in meetings with potential clients who were tired of clunky, outdated systems. Now, 2 years later, I sat in my corner office in downtown Seattle, running a company valued at just over $50 million. Our cloud management software was revolutionizing the industry, and Richardson Technologies was hemorrhaging clients, many of them to us. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Come in. I called. Lisa Chen, Janet's daughter and my head of business development, strode in with a tablet in hand. "You're going to want to see this," she said, placing it on my desk. I looked at the screen and couldn't help but smile. Richardson Technologies stock had dropped another 10% in the last hour. They were now trading at less than a quarter of their value from 2 years ago. "Word is they're looking for investors," Lisa continued. "Rumor has it David's been making the rounds, but no one's biting. They all say the same thing. The company's too far behind the curve." I picked up my phone and opened David's email again. Should I meet with him? It would be satisfying to see him squirm, to watch him realize that the wife he'd discarded had become the powerful CEO he'd always wanted to be. But I had a board meeting in an hour, followed by a client presentation. My time was valuable now. "Sarah," I called through the intercom, "please respond to Mr. Richardson's email. Tell him I'm afraid I don't have time in my schedule for meetings about struggling companies, but he's welcome to submit an investment proposal through our standard channels." Lisa grinned. Cold. "No," I corrected her, standing up to gather my materials for the board meeting. "Just business." I was reviewing quarterly projections when Sarah buzzed through again. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Richardson is here. He doesn't have an appointment, but he's insisting on seeing you." I glanced at the security feed on my computer. David stood in the reception area, looking significantly less polished than I remembered. His designer suit was slightly rumpled, his normally perfect hair showing signs of stress. No sign of the golden Rolex he'd loved to flash. Interesting. "How long has he been waiting?" I asked, though I could see the timestamp on the security feed. 20 minutes, Sarah replied. "Should I call security?" I considered it for a moment. Part of me wanted to let him stew out there, maybe even have him escorted out. But another part, the part that had spent 20 years analyzing business strategies, knew this was an opportunity. "Give him 5 more minutes," I said. "Then send him in." I used those 5 minutes to make myself impeccable. I smoothed my hair, touched up my lipstick, and adjusted my Hermes scarf, the one I bought myself to celebrate our first million in revenue. When Sarah finally shoved him in, I was seated behind my desk, reading through reports as if his presence was barely worth knowing. "Emily," he said, his voice carrying a note of desperation I'd never heard before. "Thank you for seeing me." I looked up, taking my time to acknowledge him. "David, you're looking, well." It was a lie. Up close he looked even worse. There were new lines around his eyes, a slight tremor in his hands as he clutched his briefcase. "Can we skip the pleasantries?" he asked, dropping into one of my visitor chairs without waiting for an invitation. "You know why I'm here." "Actually, I don't," I replied coolly. "My assistant tells me you don't have an appointment, and I'm quite busy running my company. Unlike some CEOs, I prefer not to waste time on unscheduled interruptions." He flinched at the implied criticism but pressed on. "Richardson Technologies needs capital. Quickly, we're developing new products, but the market's been evolving." I supplied. "Moving toward cloud-based solutions, embracing AI integration." "Yes, I've noticed." "You always did understand the industry," he said, attempting a smile that came out more like a grimace. "That's why I'm here. We need investors who get it, who see the potential. 15 million would give us enough runway to complete our transition." I picked up a pen, the Mont Blanc from our divorce, and tapped it thoughtfully against my desk. "And why should I invest in a company that's clearly failing to adapt? Your quarterly reports show declining revenue, massive client attrition, and no clear strategy for the future." His eyes widened slightly. "You've been following our numbers." "I follow all our competitors," I said smoothly. "It's just good business." "Competitors?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Emily, be serious. You run a small software company. We're in completely different leagues." I turned my monitor toward him, displaying a graph of our respective stock prices over the past 2 years. His plummeting mind soaring. "Are we?" I asked quietly, because from where I sit, David, one of us is running a thriving tech company valued at $50 million, and the other is begging for investment to save a dying business. Care to guess which is which? The color drained from his face as he studied the graph. This is Bennett Digital? Your company?" "My company," I confirmed. "The one you dismissed as a hobby during our divorce. The one that's been systematically taking your clients for the past 18 months. The one that just signed a contract with Microsoft that's worth more than your entire market cap. He slumped in his chair, briefcase sliding from his lap to the floor. Papers spilled out, financial reports, projections, desperate plans for revival. I caught a glimpse of a personal bank statement showing an account nearly drained. "What happened to your Rolex?" I asked it like a guess. He rubbed his bare wrists self-consciously. "Had to sell it. Jessica, she has expensive tastes." "Ah yes, Jessica. How is she? Still making you feel young?" His silence was answer enough. I'd heard through industry gossip that she left him 6 months ago for a younger, more successful CEO. "Emily," he said finally, his voice rough. "I know I don't deserve your help, but 20 years of marriage must count for something. Please, just look at our proposal." I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the Seattle skyline. In the reflection, I could see him watching me, hope warring with desperation on his face. 20 years of marriage, I repeated softly. "You're right, David. It does count for something." He straightened slightly, a flicker of his old confidence returning. "It counts," I continued, turning to face him, "as the most expensive business education I could have received. And now you want me to invest in the company you're running into the ground. The same company you wouldn't let me help manage because wives should stay out of business." David stood up, desperation turning to anger. "So this is revenge? You built all this just to destroy me?" I laughed, the sound echoing off my office walls. "Oh, David, not everything is about you. I built this company because I saw where the industry was going while you were busy chasing youth. I succeeded because I understood what clients needed while you were resting on your laurels. Your failure is just collateral damage." "Collateral damage?" he sputtered. 300 people work for me, Emily. Real people with families, mortgages. Do they deserve to be collateral damage?" I picked up my tablet and pulled up a file. "You mean like Angela Chen in accounting? Or Mark Rivera in development? Or the other 50 employees who've already accepted positions here at Bennett Digital?" His face went pale. "What? We've been quietly recruiting your best talent for months," I explained. "Offering better pay, better benefits, and most importantly, a future. By the end of the quarter, we'll have hired anyone worth keeping. The rest? Well, that's business." He sank back into the chair, all pretense of confidence gone. "You've thought of everything, haven't you?" "I learned from the best," I replied, "who taught me that business is business. Remember? When you told me our marriage was underperforming and you needed a younger model?" A knock at my door interrupted us. Liza entered, tablet in hand. "Sorry to interrupt, but the board is waiting in the conference room. And that other matter we discussed, it's done." I nodded. "Thank you, Lisa. I'll be right there." I turned back to David. "I'm afraid our time is up." "Please," he said, "one last attempt." "What am I supposed to do?" I sat back down at my desk and pulled out a folder. "Actually, I have a proposal for you." His eyes lit up with hope, but I quickly crushed it. Bennett Digital will buy Richardson Technologies' assets at market value, which, given your stock price, is about 10 cents on the dollar. Your shareholders get something rather than nothing. Your employees get job security, and you, I slid the folder across the desk, you get to retire with your dignity somewhat intact. He opened the folder with trembling hands, reading through the terms. "This is a hostile takeover." "No, David. This is mercy. You have 24 hours to accept. After that, we'll simply wait for bankruptcy and pick up the pieces for even less." As security escorted him out, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window. Confident, powerful, unstoppable. Not bad for a woman he deemed too old. The board meeting was brief and triumphant. Our quarterly numbers were exceptional, and the news about Richardson Technologies' imminent acquisition was met with enthusiasm. That evening, as I packed up my office, I found an old photo in my desk drawer. Our wedding day, 22 years ago. We looked so young, so full of promise. David grinning at the camera, me gazing at him adoringly. "Miss Bennett?" Sarah appeared in my doorway. "Your car is here." And Mr. Richardson's office called. They've accepted the offer. I dropped the photo in the shredder. "Thank you, Sarah. Please have legal start the paperwork first thing tomorrow." On my way out, I passed the wall of awards and press clippings that lined our reception area. Bennett Digital revolutionizes cloud management. Emily Bennett named CEO of the year. Local tech company hits $50 million valuation. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. Heard about Richardson. Drinks to celebrate. I smiled and replied, can't tonight. Early meeting tomorrow. Taking over an old tech company. Nothing major. As my driver navigated through Seattle's evening traffic, I thought about the past 2 years. The late nights, the risks, the moments of doubt. But mostly, I thought about that night David left, thinking he was leaving me with nothing. He'd been wrong about so many things. About business, about age, about what makes a person valuable. But his biggest mistake was underestimating the woman who had spent 20 years learning exactly how to succeed in this industry. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. You won. Are you happy now? D. I typed back 3 words. Just getting started. Then I blocked his number and turned back to the quarterly projections for our newest division. There was still so much to build, so much to achieve. And unlike David, I wasn't interested in looking back. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success so complete that your enemies become footnotes in your story. David had wanted a younger woman. He got his wish. But he'd forgotten that experience, wisdom, and determination often trump youth. As my car pulled up to my penthouse apartment, I caught sight of my reflection in the lobby windows. At 42, I didn't see an aging woman past her prime. I saw a CEO, a visionary, a force to be reckoned with. The security guard tipped his hat. Evening, Ms. Bennett. Another late night? I smiled, thinking of the empire I built from the ashes of David's betrayal. Actually, Jim, I'm just getting started. And I was. Because the sweetest part of success isn't proving others wrong. It's proving yourself right.